So I just got rid of my Pixel 4a. Let's talk about why. I absolutely loved my Pixel 3a, so much so that I wrote a review telling people to avoid the iPhone and save the money and go with the Pixel 3a, and I still stand by that. It was a fantastic phone. So obviously, when Google announced their Pixel 4a, I jumped on board. And at first it was great. With a Snapdragon 730G, you don't really expect a whole lot for performance, but it handled everything pretty well, at least for the first 3 months. After that, things began to go on a steady decline, and it only got worse after that. Every single day seemed to have a new issue crop up. A good chunk of my issues were tied to Google Maps. Anytime I would try to navigate somewhere, it felt as though the whole phone, the entire experience, slowed down entirely. Even swapping between apps would break. Everything would kind of scream to a halt. This became kind of frustrating, especially when paired with Google's attempted implementation of their driving apps. Spotify also seemed to have a ton of problems on Android. It would refuse to launch, its driving app was abysmal, and any time that I tried to swap between it and something else, there tended to be a crash or a lag in the audio. Now, a lot of this could be chalked up to the fact that this has such an underpowered chip, but I still expected more because the Pixel 3a handled everything pretty admirably. Now I understand you can't expect a whole lot from a budget device, but the bar was set so high with the Pixel 3a that this was pretty disappointing. The camera performance made up for a lot. I really enjoyed shooting with this camera. The Pixel 4a manages to get some of my favorite nighttime images I've ever gotten. Video performance was admirable, though it still fell quite a bit short of the iPhone, which is generally the case with anything Android. iPhone has been leading the pack with video for a while now. But this phone seems to swing way above its weight class when you compare its images to almost anything else on the market. It was really, really good in that regard. But can a camera make up for all of those other issues? For a while it did, but in those last 6 months that I owned this phone, the issues kept mounting and it became more of a hassle for me to use this device the way that I wanted to use it. And the second that begins happening is the second I started looking to jump ship. For all of the issues that I was having with this phone, I still really enjoy Android, and in particular, the stock Android experience that Google throws onto their Pixel devices. This was a joy to use, and some of the AI features and machine learning that Google incorporates into their OS were a godsend, and it really did feel like magic. The call screening feature in particular was just really, really cool, allowing Google to sit on hold for me whenever I was waiting on tech calls or I was trying to get into some customer service center. That felt really neat. I still had to keep my eye on the phone pretty close, and I wouldn't trust it entirely with literally everything in my life, but for those calls that you just don't want to wait on, that was a pretty neat feature. I did use Google's call screening service, and occasionally I would get customers that would try to call me and they would hang up because they were getting an unfamiliar voice on the phone, which is a risk, I suppose, with any feature like this, but it was cool enough that I kept it on. I really, really enjoyed being able to have that, and it definitely cut my spam calls down by at least half, which is incredible. Android as an OS was really exciting to use and was particularly helpful to me in my IT career. It has a lot of apps and specific integrations and customizations that were helpful for me in troubleshooting networks or even just getting down into basic networking settings. That being said, this swap was made all so much easier by the fact that the OS itself could not keep up with me during my day-to-day work routine. Even basics, swapping back and forth between Spotify and Maps, or the Maps and text messaging. I couldn't respond to a text if my navigation app was still open. There were random crashes. This is despite several resets of the OS, so this felt like a Google problem. And it was a Google problem that I really wanted them to fix. I really wanted them to push an update that eventually would make everything work better again. And I gave them that time and I gave them the effort, and it still didn't work. So all of that made swapping from Android to iOS that much easier. It was a decision that was not difficult because at the end I was so frustrated, I'm willing to try something else. And I decided to switch to iPhone. Now, I'm not a big iOS fan, and anyone that has watched any of my videos knows that I struggle with Mac a little bit. There's a lot of design decisions that they make that have been frustrating to me as a user. I see so many problems in the way that they approach the customer or user experience, but I'm really excited about the camera. I'm really excited to test out another OS for the first time in a little while. It's been a long time since I've used an iPhone as my daily driver for any length of time, and so this was kind of an exciting thing. I'll be reviewing the iPhone 13 Pro over the next week or so look for that review next. But the biggest takeaway I would say is I was so disappointed in the way that the Pixel 4a aged. Those first 3 months were incredible, and it was a really great high-value device, but something I think we always have to take into consideration when we're looking at buying new technology is that investment, while initially very low, actually worthwhile over a longer term? And in the case of the Pixel 4a, I didn't really feel as though I got my money's worth. Not in the same way that I did with the Pixel 3a. If you're having to upgrade more regularly and you're not getting as long of a life out of your device, then you never actually saved money. And that's how it felt with the Pixel 4a. The last 6 months were kind of a hell living with that device, and I felt as though it was a wasted investment. The Pixel 3a seemed to strike this perfect balance between price and performance, at least performance within the realm of the things that I enjoy, which is mainly photography. And I loved being able to use stock Android and have a relatively smooth experience through that device. The Pixel 4a experience was bad enough that I shied away from the Pixel 5a, which I was kind of looking forward to trying. Additionally, the delays surrounding the Pixel 5a and the onset of the Tensor chip kind of make that less of an enticing proposition for anyone looking for a phone right now. I would highly recommend anyone considering the 5a to at least wait until the 6 is announced, because there's going to be a lot of interesting technology packed into that device, and it's probably a better option from an economic standpoint. As for me, I'm going to try and struggle my way through iOS. Expect me to complain about that in a review video later. I will say this though, the camera experience so far has been remarkable. Expect that iPhone 13 Pro review sometime later the next week. Maybe next 2 weeks. I don't know. I'm kind of slow sometimes. But these are just my thoughts. I would love to hear what you think if you have the Pixel 4a and maybe you didn't have the problems that I had, or maybe you had different problems than I had. Please leave those thoughts in the comments down below. Thanks for watching. I probably love you. I'll see you in the next video. Thanks.